First off, thanks to CBN for having us and allowing us to share a little bit about what we're working on in the climate risk space. My name's Cal Inman. I'm the founder of Climate Check. I have a background in commercial real estate development. We started the company about 4 years ago. And for the last 2 years, we've partnered with Eris, and we've also been working on a Canadian data set and product, which I'm excited to share with you today. A little bit about the data in that and the end product. Really who we serve at Climate Check are all the stakeholders in real estate: equity investors, municipalities, lenders, and help those stakeholders understand what their exposure is to climate risk, both under frameworks like TCFD for ESG reporting purposes, but also risk management. A brief overview of the hazards we cover. There's 2 general buckets of hazards. The first are chronic ongoing hazards that we experience with high frequency. Those include precipitation, drought, and extreme heat. And then the second bucket are acute hazards, hazards that cause loss, insurable loss, and damage to properties. Those include fire and flooding. I'll take you through a brief overview of all the hazards and their granularity and the coverage, and then show you a little bit about the product. The first hazard, flooding, is our most granular hazard. It's on a 10-meter grid across all of Canada. We take future rainfall simulations from these global climate models and pour them over elevation maps across all of Canada, taking into account soil porosity and understand where that water pools. And that gives us key insights to what is the probability of a flood happening on an individual property and what is the depth. We look at this risk today and then in the future, 2050. And so we can understand what's the risk today, and then with climate change into account, what's the risk in the future. Similarly for fire, it's a very granular hazard. It's on 30-meter grid across the entire country. And the key metrics we look at there are, what is the probability of a fire happening? And when we measure this, we're looking at something called a fire weather index day, which is a hot day, a dry day, and a windy day. And there's a really strong signal between these fire weather index days and the probability of a wildfire happening. So this helps us understand and communicate what is the increased frequency and risk to wildfire at a specific location. Drought is a very coarse hazard. It's on a 25-kilometer grid across the entire country, and it's meteorological drought data. So it helps us understand what is the projected duration of droughts going to be moving into the future, how dry are those droughts going to be, and then what is the frequency of these events. Precipitation is an interesting one. We use a baseline of what your local precipitation values are. So what is a rainy day in that location? We measure that over a 48-hour period. And then how many of those heavy rainfall days have we had in the past? And then we project out into the future in 5-year increments. How many more of these heavy rainfall days are we going to have moving into the future? And how much rain is going to fall? This data is on a 5-kilometer grid across Canada. Extreme heat is measured very similar. We look at what is a hot day in your specific location. Historically, how many days a year does that happen? And then moving into the future, how many more of these hot days are we going to have every year? And how hot are those days going to be? So we have all this data, and we present it in 2 different emission scenarios. And this is important for reporting, but also to give a range of uncertainty. And when we say emission scenarios, we're looking at what are the global emissions that we're going to have moving into the future. RCP 4.5, the better case scenario, represents a reduction in emissions, and RCP 8.5 assumes we're on the similar trajectory that we're on right now. And again, this gives us a range of uncertainty of the data, and it's important for reporting purposes. So we have all of this data across the entire country. And when you type in a specific address, we'll query a radius around that address to help you understand what is the individual properties exposure to each of these risks, and then what's the community exposure around that property to the risks. Is this property going to flood in one corner of the property, or do you have flood risk around the property that's going to affect access to the property, or are the adjacent properties going to flood? So after we query the data, the end product that you get when you type in an address is a 30-page PDF report. It's a very visual report that presents all the data. We start at the highest level, ranking the risks from highest risk to lowest risk, and then allow you to dive deep into that, showing visuals, the data over time in graphs, and maps showing the risk to the property and the surrounding areas. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to the ARIS team. They understand the data. They're happy to bring us into it. Yeah, we're excited about rolling out this product in Canada. So thanks for making the time, and thanks for letting me present.